Indeed, it's in progress. Hi, I'm Malaika Albrecht, and I am the founding editor of Redheaded Stepchild. Welcome to our Thursday book launch. We've been doing this for how long, Karen? A year and 9 months? No, 5 months. Year and a half.
Easily a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have had a fabulous group of people, and tonight is no exception. We are going to be celebrating with Hilda Downer. And if you look in the chat section, I have a direct link so you could buy her book from Main Street Rag. I do want to do a brief little bio. Yeah, we can clap, Karen. I like clapping for that. You know, it's a hard enough time to celebrate and have book launches given the best of times. And as we know, these are not the best of times. But we're very fortunate that there is a platform like Zoom and that there is a community like y'all that's supportive and shows up for our poets that we love. And so Hilda is a long-term member of the Southern Appalachian Writers Cooperative and North Carolina Writers Conference. And she has an MA in English from Appalachian State University and MFA in poetry from Vermont College. Retired from teaching English, she also worked as a psychiatric nurse for 38 years. I love that. Her first book of poetry was Bandana Creek, and it was published by Red Clay Press. Her second book was Sky Under the Roof by Bottom Dog Press, and it was a Nautilus Golden Winner. She has published essays and poetry in numerous journals, and she lives in Sugar Grove, North Carolina. I'm going to give one little reminder, make sure you mute yourself. And then also, if you would like to read for open mic, please send me a message and I will put your name down. Hilda, I'm turning it over to you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I am very excited to hear you read.
Thank you, Malaika. And gosh, thank you everybody for coming. I feel so honored. Also have to express thanks to M. Scott Douglas for publishing this book. And this is the cover. I think Pat and I will get our books hand delivered to us tomorrow. But my friend Reba that I grew up with took the photo for the cover, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm going to read part of the introduction to kind of explain the book. It was actually accepted by a publisher 3 years ago, and at that time it had photos, and that fell through. So it began as a collaborative 8 years ago with a photographer in Albany, New York, while I live, of course, in Western North Carolina. Meeting on the cusp of becoming seniors, we dealt with a unique set of challenges in a relationship. Distance posed the expected problems while ongoing situations impeded our being together. Cultural and personal differences, the increasing needs and subsequent loss of elderly parents, the illnesses and loss of some of my friends, our own health problems, his being retired while I continued a stressful job as a travel nurse, the involvement with our grown children, and gaining trust in the aftermath of former long-term relationships. Plus, some of the same issues occurred as they do among young people when dating. The self-consciousness about appearance was on another level of losing hair and gaining wrinkles. We introduced each other to friends and family, let alone adult children, with no less trepidation than anyone might face. Hence, I suggested a collaborative as an attempt to solidify the relationship as we spent so much time apart, and to celebrate the joy derived simply from being our age and having the means to do things like travel. Early on, I sent him a poem about a lighter that he'd left at my house. So his response was to send me a photo of a lighter. And that started a volley of response. He sent me a photograph he'd taken of utility poles right in front of his house. So I wrote a poem about it. Most of the poems I wrote and would send to him, and he would try to find a photograph to match it, or we would go together and try to come up with a photograph. Separate pieces shaped by loneliness and longing still allowed the whole of the collaborative to bond us with a strength that hardship could not break. Only one of us could do that, as when he suddenly cut off all ties. Fortunately, we consciously tried to produce work that didn't rely on the correlating poem or photograph. After months of no communication and no way to get his permission for publication, I removed his work and added more poems, a very cathartic process. If a photograph is worth 1,000 words, I hope resilience brought to light is worth more. Though the photographer and I were at the same place during our lives at different times, where we could not have waited for each other, I believe light waits for us, that truth comes out sooner or later, that what has gone underground will rise again, and that we will arrive at the same place until we see what we could not before. Moreover, the most important component in photography and poetry is the right light, and it will come for the optimal image and understanding. Former blank pages now aspire to be better than I am and to convey the love I tried so hard to give. Love may not continue to grow with any given individual. Nevertheless, it does grow as we share light and shed light upon new discoveries. So the poems are not about being ghosted. They're really love poems, and I think gratitude for large and small things. I'm going to read utility poles. Outside your house, utility poles lean desperately toward each other. The crosses for two thieves represented nothing sacred to the crowd, whereas these uphold communication. Suspended transformers look like kangaroos that hop 44 miles per hour in the wild, in stasis here under burden wires. Before I understood the meaning behind the symbols, I made stories out of the pictorial letters in the family Bible. The red print like a sunset over silhouette trees, stripes of sentences scattered tall T's across the page, the way telephone poles tack down the roadside upholstery of weeds. How does a message ever get through? Near our roots, yet far from childhood, our distance from each other is firm. Just within sight on Skype, we cannot touch. Weathered and next in line to be replaced, the poles can hardly bear our daily emails as they produce their own gravity with open arms, lines sagging under the weight of yearning. And thank you. The next one kind of shows the process that we went through in coming up with photographs or poems. And we were working on a triptych of photos of his daughter Liz, her name, for each letter. When I learned the alphabet, it really made an impression on me because I can't let go of seeing the alphabet everywhere in everything. So this is that process of coming up for a gift that we did get his daughter. It's called Searching for the Z. We found the capital L where new shiny tin mends a rusted barn roof. Spotting the little I, you quickly pull the car over, cross the street, press through the open sky of a parking lot, hemmed with drunken men, to thread an alley where I lost sight of you, before aligning your camera with a tall steeple pointing to the full moon as its most profound thought. On a beach mountain dusty road, two rabbits crossed to opposite sides with a third angling between, an invisible Z of no use. To your series of 3 photos, I recall the realistic rabbit knitted by Liz, your daughter, beautiful with her rich dark hair and her creative intelligence. You and I never searched for each other as something lost or something to gain. Out of the darkness, into the multicolored tissue paper sunrise, it was my privilege to raise sons, but I mourn not having a daughter. As I help you search the landscape for a Z, the only part still missing in the triptych of your daughter's name, a name you found long ago without me. And I write a lot about, I guess, small objects, because that's about as far as my mind goes, is, in the backyard. Buttons. I cannot guess the number of buttons in the huge Vaseline jar. A kaleidoscope of variety and color slinks a waterfall over my fingers into a lake across the table. Culled from flour sack dresses, infant clothes, and military jackets, some are big as a doll's plate. Others so tiny and delicate that their white is transparent. Among my favorites are the black ones centered with clear rhinestones, like stars floating on a cup of night. I position them as the Big Dipper. One, elongated and made of wood, is shaped like a lozenge for a barn. Anchors and sailboats in relief, metal holes rank over all, but cannot recite ocean waves as the mother of pearl, wafer thin, with its curvaceous tan hues. Each button is cool and smooth as a worry stone. I can feel them there, the touch of my mother, aunts, and uncles. Their small fingers fumbling buttons, starting at the top of the shirt until one side is longer at the bottom. My grandmother never seemed to smile. She did not sing or pick guitar while the family played music on the porch. For perfume, she dabbed vanilla behind her ear. She wore no jewelry, no diamonds or gems brilliant in a blue velvet lined box. Even the button collection was utilitarian, to save money when sewing new clothes. She collected what was necessary to canter dry for the winter. No time for gluttonous collections of vintage dresses, hats, jewelry, rocks, depression glass, and old books that I must now purge. When the buttons pour out, some roll off the table and bounce out of sight. I put the rest back into the jar, an hourglass starting over again with fewer seconds left to use. And this is one that I wrote after losing my mother. Clothespins. Not every girl looks this glamorous out of the shower. One clothespin clenches my robe with a lost tie. Another repairs a worn out shower cap. It sticks out on the side, cartoonish as a dogwood ponytail. Clothespins organize letters and bills in line to be the next to go. Keep bags of flour and cornmeal tight-lipped and hold cereal bags to soothe them quiet. Paper clips do not have such wooden wings. Of winter laundry, jeans froze stiff as new ones until my mother surrendered to lines across the living room. Ducking under towels or fighting with shirts, I would quickly tear away my underwear when a car pulled up. From the yard sale of all her belongings, I kept my mother's clothespins. I had no need for them. I already had enough to share when I extended a clothesline across the backdrop of your cityscape. Not used to hanging out clothes, you began to report each time the wind patted your sheets and towels dry. Positioned as a sundial, laundry sets its timer to be brought in by the shadows of its alphabet. I painted clothespins into exotic animals to hold a young son's attention and keep him nearby. Just as he started to wander, he would run back to laugh as I pulled out a hippopotamus or alligator to chomp down on a wet sock, wriggling to escape. When I was a child, my mother's straight clothespins were my first models. Practice for making my own clothes. As she cut quilt pieces, scraps themselves, I gathered her scraps off the floor to tie around the bodice of a clothespin, an elegant prom gown. A scrap goes a long way. A man survived death camp by a scrap. After dishing out the last portion to others, he licked the spoon. A clothespin is just a scrap of wood, oiled by fingers skillful across piano keys. My mother's clothespins absorbed some of her music as they rattle in the coffee tin. And probably the younger set won't know what I'm talking about with the potato chip lady on the Tonight Show, but I think those close to my age might recall her. She gave me hope that artists are everywhere, thinking deeply in ditches, looking adrift out office windows, or finding imagery at a potato chip factory. Among all those potato chips to be eaten or crushed, transient as sand art, she aimed to preserve the ones she found special. Nothing tastes more like nothing sliced thin with salt on it than potato chips. Lipids and starch in the scheme of nutrition, useful only for dancing across on tables. My grandmother dealt sliced potatoes onto the surface of the wood cook stove. The blackened rare treat formed a necessary memory for self-preservation, a longing for winter. Potato chips and noisy bags on buses or in classrooms epitomize why some people in other countries hate us. The potato chip lady, before eBay and blogs, was alone in her search. Her job at the conveyor belt facilitated what she called seeing little objects. She found a dinosaur, a camel, a calf's head, Nixon, Alfred Hitchcock, Bob Hope, and renewed faith in the world. She even found a pair of socks. It is so hard to find a pair, she beamed. All I ever found was a heart. I wrapped it in tissue for protection. I forgot and threw the tissue away. Then I broke my own heart, the one I wanted to give you, to photograph and commemorate. Maybe a potato chip collection does not seem that important, but there was that riveting moment after Carson grabbed a chip from a bowl. As she lovingly held one from her display, he crunched loudly. Suddenly, she looked at him in panic. All art, all poetry crumbled like babble before ascending with laughter on the paired wings of potato chips. And this is the poem where the title of the book came from, When Light Waits for Us. When I was travel nursing, I spent some time in Vermont, and living in the mountains, I thought I knew how to drive in snow and that I knew what snow was like, but I didn't. I lived with other travel nurses in a huge barn that was turned into a lodge. This is called Moosehead. Icicles, skeletons of water, drape the eaves of the lodge into the mane of a horse, or roots set to produce mud season. All that is left of Adirondack chairs overtaken with snow are stub noses, barely able to breathe above the surface. The Moosehead is confounded by our entrapment here in -degree weather with all this taxidermy. Skunk, beaver, and pheasants flag the beams with diversity. A leopard stalks a raccoon. Antelope, elk, and deer mounts stagger toward the soaring ceiling like a climbing wall of antlers. The farthest dark reach of the glass eyes will pinpoint me down to the depth of loneliness once you leave. The Moosehead is in a league of its own. Below its overlook of the banister, I photograph you goofy, hands above your head, feigning antlers. His indifference watches you imitate the black bear making a stand between the kitchen and dining room. His antlers span and curve the way ice tongues form question marks, gripping at answers elusive as fog. What if he had turned left instead of right? Did his rationale hesitate over the razor taste of fear or the smell of inevitable death? Emily Dickinson attempted to understand her own death in case preparedness might alleviate the pain of transition. Purpose might prevent a temporary life from sinking deeper than the grave. I try to stamp out every bad seed from delivering itself to our future. Why do we have to live so far apart? The Moosehead will not explain. Stuffed with the sound of cotton, subatomics of his knowledge merely hum. What could we have done to arrive sooner at this strange place where love makes us more alive? Our molecules vibrating as one. What if we had met when we were young? We would still choose the children each had with someone else. We could have met at places visited in our youth. Howe Caverns, the Baseball Hall of Fame, and the Scotticoke Fair. I always knew you were out there. I sometimes called out to you through the tunnel of eternity. Yet you leapt deeper into your life and left me deeper in mine. You could not wait for me. I could not wait for you. Light waited for us. So I'm wondering if it might be time for others to read.
Hilda, that was lovely. If that's where you'd like to end, but I would be glad to hear you read some more. You have a lovely, lovely reading voice, I have to say too, besides gorgeous work.
Well,
You have a voice that I could really listen to for, a length of time. So if you have another one you'd like to read, I'm sure we'd all like to hear it.
Thank you for that, but I cannot stand to hear my voice. So I will never watch this recording.
I think all of us have that similar feeling. And I think it has something to do with just we're not used to hearing it, in the same way when it gets videotaped.
It's like saying your own name. I think I'll read this poem
Great.
as a tribute to Charlene Swansea. She was my first publisher, and I never know what to expect with publishing because I think she ruined it for me. It took 2 years for that first book to come out, and I would go and spend the weekend with her. I literally walked by a phone booth one time. It rang and it was her. So we just had a wonderful, amazing relationship. When I took the photographer to meet her, and we've been in contact, over the years, but she didn't remember me and she didn't remember my book. And I called her to ask her if I could visit, and she said, well, what do you want? And I said, well, I want to read you a poem and I have a vintage hat I want to give you. So she set the date. And it was a wonderful visit, though I don't think she ever remembered me. This is called, and she's now the late Charlene. We lost her a couple of years ago. Charlene Swansea's Lipstick. As we headed out the door, she asked if we needed lipstick. I said yes, in case of an emergency. She handed over the Maybelline tube. Like a baton, I knew I would keep aflame. I wanted you to meet Charlene, my first publisher, who claimed to be Pound's daughter during visits with him at the asylum. He taught her Chinese and about poetry. Once, she admonished me for using gerunds, running through her house screaming that Pound would say the line wobbled. Pound would go on to say I had no respect for the English language. Other times, he would say something so nice that I could feel his breath on the back of my neck. Her letters from E.E. Cummings, sparing of words, were bountiful with drawings. In one, a winged elephant fluttered above clouds. I wanted you to hear firsthand about her introduction of T.S. Eliot to Pound, of James Dickey writing Deliverance in her basement. Despite profound conversations with Einstein, she winked at me, and he did prefer blondes. I wanted you to meet her, someone who witnessed I was young and full of promise. When I called her, she asked me what I wanted because she had never heard of me or my book. I said I wanted to read her a poem. She set the date. Your photo caught her laughing against the breeze when I said her hair moved like dandelion seed. Mostly, I wanted to give you hope, her Southern cheerleading beauty shining into her 80s, stories stranger than fiction melting from her lips in the shade of pink called Ravishing Rose. Thank you all.
People want to unmute, please feel free to, because I know that's something that I like being able to do, is to clap and say, thank you so much, Hilda. That was just lovely. And I'm glad you read that poem.
You all. So I should go ahead and mute myself now.
Not yet, because I'm pretty sure you're not off the hook yet. The hot seat is still on. I might have taken off the spotlight, but the hot seat's still there. Because I know people probably have questions. There were, some lovely comments in here. Somebody said, wonderful as always, my friend. That was Tom. Kim said that was a wonderful tribute to your first publisher. Jeff wrote, her voice is full of compassion and self-understanding to my ears. And that's, I would agree with that, Jeff. That's, and then Tom wrote, Charlene could do that. What a woman. That's awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of people wrote, lines that really resonated. I'll send this to you, Hilda, so you can read it at your leisure. Terry wrote, absolutely brilliant in every way. So feel free, everybody, to unmute if you have a question, if you want to talk to Hilda about a specific poem, or if you want to hear more about her process. I love how you focus in on a seemingly small or, just a random object, and how you draw it into so many loops and embraces of deeper meanings in life. It's just gorgeous. It's gorgeous. The buttons, the clothespin, just a wonderful way of coming at poetry.
Such a beautiful reading, Hilda. Thank you so much. And, one of the things that I'm really aware of within it is this interweaving of light and dark, which I think you do so well. And this reading, it doesn't shy away from the darkness, but there's a light that shines on everything. So thank you.
Thank you, Pauletta.
It's a great way to put it, Pauletta.
Hi, Hilda. This is Richard. I have a couple of, I have a question and a comment. The comment first. No, the question first. Can you still buy clothespins in the store? I've had trouble finding them.
I haven't had to buy them in a long time. I have so many, but yes, you can.
Okay, because I find them really good as potato chip bag closures.
Yeah, very useful.
But getting back to the story you told about being in a relationship and then with a photographer and collaborating on the book, and then he disappeared from your life. How did you manage to carry on and finish that? You said you actually added more poems in place of the material that you took out. I mean, was that a difficult thing to do, or was it sort of good riddance? Let's get his photographs out of here and get poems in here.
Well, actually, Richard, it was not so difficult because when he disappeared, my brother had just committed suicide, and nothing else kind of could affect me. That was the worst thing, one of the worst things that could happen. So I did there wasn't anything else I could deal with, anyone disappearing or, the big disappearing act was my brother. And it did take me a while to even realize that, hey, I'm probably not going to hear from the photographer again. And that's his choice, but I think too, I don't feel bad about it. I mean, it's sad that you can't have a happily ever after, but I have gratitude for the time that we had together. And I think it was good. And I think that we all, handle things to the best of our ability. And he had his own things that he couldn't deal with. So, that's how he, dealt with it. And so when I started actually looking at the book again, it's like, I've got to get this out of the way before I can go on. I was writing a lot of new poems. And so I thought, I can't even ask him for permission for these photos. So I just deleted them all. And I started, working on other poems, I wrote other poems. Some of them I resurrected. Some I never would have even thought of putting in a book, but I worked on them, and that was really good to finish things that I thought I'd never finish. So it was not really that difficult. It was, like I said, very cathartic. It was very helpful to do that. And I've been able to finish another manuscript because I finished this one, I feel like this one's taken care of. So now I'm working on other things. And so, I'm at the same place I would have been if he had not ghosted me. And it's just, not the bravest thing to do, or not the most courageous thing to do, but I certainly can't. I know that that's the ability that he had, was to behave that way. And it doesn't, it probably does reflect on me, because I am the person who put my robe together when I realized that the tie was gone with a clothespin. So, I mean, if you've got a girl like that, maybe you're going to ghost her. She's not exactly glamorous coming out of the shower, but I accept my gifts where I get them, and I'm just the people that care about me and that they're there for me. I'm just so thankful. So
that's another thing that resonates in your poem, is this lovely undergirding of gratitude, of recognizing when gifts show up, Hilda. And I really thought that was gorgeous. I mean, like light-weighted for us. I mean, the whole title poem. Yep, good opening line potential. I accept my gifts where I get them. That's from Jeff. So you have poems, ideas in the chat section. But what, hearing about your brother, I'm so sorry that happened. And I was thinking about when you removed the photographs, oddly enough, a lot of them are still there in the undergirding of it's like that after image. Some of the poems refer to the pictures, and then you built on that. So I think it's beautiful that you continued creating and following that process through to the end, when it would have been, easy to set it aside and just say, I can't deal with this. But I think you're right. A lot of us as poets say, I have to get this one done so I can move on. And I've actually got people in the waiting room. I'm going to let them in. And I feel so bad for them because they've missed your reading. It makes me feel sad. Does anybody have any other questions for Hilda?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment very quickly and just say, from the first moment I met you, Hilda, I thought you were an amazing human being. And I love your work. Your poems are stunning, just stunning. So thank you so much.
Okay, I don't want to cry now. But coming from you, Terry, my gosh, I am a big fan. Thank you.
Well, I'm a big fan of yours in return, and I love every word you uttered. It was just beautiful. And I love your voice.
Yes, right. I kind of want to pay her to, read a nighttime story. I mean, it's so beautiful.
Really.
Well, as a psychiatric nurse, my thing is relaxation group. People to sleep. So as a teacher, I had to learn tricks.
Malaika, you said you were going to give us the links to how to buy the book. Is that right?
I will. Yes, I did, Richard. Let me go ahead and put it there again, because it's all the way in the beginning of the chat section. So you would be scrolling all the way. But thank you, Richard, for saying that. And here it is again. Yes. Oh, Susan, I'm glad you're here. And the great thing is, if if anybody joined late, you're welcome to watch, and you do want to go back and listen to Hilda read from her book. Yeah. Terry said, I can't wait to get my copy already ordered. All right, guys, I don't want to miss any questions. I think I've gone through the chat section. I didn't see anything. So if you have something, jump in. Otherwise, we're going to move to open mic and give Hilda a break from talking.
Hilda,
Yes.
I'm so curious.
Hey.
When you talk about the catharsis that as the breakup process happened and you revised this book, has that been the most significant kind of therapeutic process in your art so far in your life, or can you compare that with other moments in your writing?
I would say that my first book was probably the most therapeutic, because I've always dealt with depression, and my late teens is when I wrote that book. It was a really difficult time. So I think writing that book was probably the most therapeutic writing that I've done. I'm doing some writing now that probably will be the most therapeutic, as my experience as a foster child, and kind of being homeless during high school, staying 2 weeks here, a week there. So it's kind of, I've waited long enough to write about it. Sometimes I've thought, why involve someone else with your own kind of therapy? But it's always my hope that when you're writing something where you're struggling through something, I can't think of a single poem that I'm not trying to figure out something. That's why I'm writing the poem. I'm trying to figure this out, why did this image come? But I do think that I now have grown to a place where I can handle writing those poems, and to do it in such a way that someone could relate to, without it being like, dumping stuff on them, hopefully.
And this is the new manuscript, Hilda?
Yes. Yeah.
I
Thank
can't
you
wait.
for that question, Thom.
Thanks, Thom. I'm glad you asked that, because now I'm excited about the new book coming up. And Hilda, I think that's fabulous, that it's important to, I think you are giving people who've had similar experiences, or even different experiences, an emotional bridge into themselves and that sense of connection. That's a beautiful and brave thing to do. So I'm glad you asked that question, Thom. Yeah, and Thom said, we're always excited for more from Hilda. True story. And Myra said, so great to hear you read again, Hilda. I treasure this.
Oh, hey, Myra.
All right, guys, it feels like we're ready to head towards open mic. I think I have everybody's list on the names. And if you'd like to unmute just briefly so Hilda can hear us clap. Thank you, Hilda. That was a lovely reading.
I look forward to everyone reading. So I'm going to mute myself.
Okay. I am going to head towards Anne. I have you written down as our first reader, and I hope you're okay with being spotlighted briefly.
Okay. Thank you. That was a wonderful reading, Hilda. This poem is called When We Talk Again. After our last visit, the first in a long time, I woke up back in my own bed, realizing I could see you again on FaceTime. I put on a little makeup, fluffed my hair, and adjust the lighting for the camera. But our communication is superficial now that we're so far apart, and neither of us has prospects for visiting again anytime soon. When it's time for our call, I hang a pair of light orange earbuds over the back of my chair, ready to plug in case someone else is near. I don't want them to hear your voice. I'm saving it for myself. I can't smooth your gray curls, taste the early figs from your tree, or smell the crackling yopon as we burn brush in the fall. But I can wear my opium perfume. You never liked it because it overwhelmed your senses. Our FaceTiming fell apart last month. We had no more plans to discuss. You got busy, and I went on with my gardening, until one week I noticed that I was in the doldrums, the inertia of a ship stranded at sea when the sails sag and no progress is made toward its destination. Rain fell, and I stayed alive with little else to nourish me. While I was adrift, I saved up dreams to share with you, like I saved the orange earbuds for listening to Joni sing of clouds in painted skies. When we talk again, the great currents will resume rolling in deep seas. As I move away from the equator, the farthest point in my journey, the season will shift, and after the doldrums, I will sail in a fresh blue wind. Thank you.
Oh, that is gorgeous. I will sail in a fresh blue wind. Thank you so very much. I love that. Ah,
No, thanks.
you've brought some awesome readers too, Hilda. This is great. I'm glad. Thank you so much, Anne. I will, yeah, somebody else wrote beautiful lyric poem. I will sail in a fresh blue wind. Yeah, just gorgeous, just gorgeous. My next person I have is Jeff. I'm headed your way.
Right. That was a fine reading, Hilda, by the way. So, and I did pass along the link to the radio show that we did a couple weeks ago. So, like many folks in the South, for many years I made a pilgrimage to the beach during the summer, usually in the August, September, and always loved those times. And of course, it was a time of many special occasions. So this is a poem of gratitude for those occasions, called The Covenants. The path ends at the Atlantic. I could go left to the pier, the old hotel, the lights, or go right to the point where the dark land gives way to the endless tidal flow, and find company with those who together in solitudes meet and pass in the full moon's glow with nods. The deep night needs no words. Quick moon silver lights the beach path past dark houses, beyond still nests of sea turtles, sleeping terns, gulls, and pelicans. Unwed, the house rules said we couldn't share the same bed, so I led girlfriends here to skinny dip and make love. We made our vows on beach towels up in the sand dunes, our bodies tasting everywhere of salt. Fresh from mating, the female lockerheads flippered slowly beyond high tide to make their nest amid the sea oats. And now, wakened from their eggs, countless hatchlings stream across the beach to the sea home most will never leave. Just 1 or 2 years from now, having slowly swum 8,000 miles in the meantime, will return to this obscure specific sand. This is their morphology, a commitment made of flesh and blood. Now wave tops flick in iridescent multitudes, ride the rising tide in, fall, surrendered then to undertow. And the beach glows, baptized with these speechless communions. I know the light is mingled into sand to transmit once again the covenant, the codex of the sea. Thanks.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff. There's quite a few comments that were going into the chat section. Baptized with these speechless communions, a commitment made of flesh and blood. Then Richard said, wonderful images from nature and some not from nature too. Thank you so much, Jeff. Joan, I'm headed your way. And guys, I do know we probably will run a little over. If you have to leave, I totally understand. But I really do like to make sure we get through open mic and get to hear everybody's voice. And somebody else, Sandra just wrote, fantastic poem, Jeff. Joan, all you.
Thank you.
Yes, this poem is from my forthcoming book, Carrying Claire. It's coming out next year from Main Street Rag, and I am gonna put that in the chat. There it is. Okay. Strength. 10-day-old Claire wails on an X-ray table. Her tiny ovaries protected, but she's naked on metal, flailing under strange light. I sit rigid against the wall. No one ever called me strong, fragile, even frail, a waif without endurance, not strong. People have had to rescue me. My baby's body is red from screaming, her back arched, skull uncradled. I croon to her, my breasts leak for her, but in her agony, I can't yet save her. The technician finishes at last. I dress and swaddle Claire, give her my breast, sate her with my power.
That's awesome, Joan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, fabulous. I am headed towards you, Thom. Let me see if I can find you, and it might help if you say something and then I'll see you. I gotcha.
Hi,
Hi, Thom.
Hilda.
Let me get the spotlight.
Oh, thank you. This is coming from the book that I'm actually currently distributing in pictures, which is interesting. So, yeah, I decided not to go through a publisher this time. Anyway, oh, Hilda, I picked it for you because it reminds me of what you were saying one time about how I see the world. So if no one else likes it, I'm sure you will. Anyway, it's called Gloriana. I'm looking at a lamp and tree. Of course, it's the city. Cavernous spaces, museums should be monumental. We are one with the seals, miracle of recovery, our water memories. My eyes are blue and they see a whole world in themselves. And that's just in the mirror where I think they are pretty. First philosophy, then science, cars just burning ahead of me and the firefighters on the highway. Sucking on acorn size of second walnut. Children of the confluence said enough is in the cards. And what makes an author dissipate or run out of print, only maybe lucky to be rediscovered? Greatest fear, to be forgotten. Sundays when the light goes cloudy, brings sense of sadness, maybe love, but then car parts store. Should have held his breath, he thinks. This Sunday is a sunny day, and the cardinals know it. Man with the God complex supersedes tall man in suit running into the wind alongside the highway. His dictum that they can do better. Sun struck in the digital age, you meant we couldn't do math, and all that fucking turning. The way passing a few cars pulled over by police can only baffle you. now realizing that you aren't a part of that narrative. And so what if it makes us all die in 15 years? If you had a nice time, then why bother? So I just let my vet finish with her opinion, happy to be safe. I'm suspicious of the subtler signs. Some days, trees, you know, seem greener. Somehow comfortable aloud when the page looks nervous. In Hookset, a dead Exxon fading, aside a graveyard, everything overgrown. To say abandoned wouldn't be exaggeration. Because this is where Christian Science is born. And yes, there's snow all over. People sawing ice sculptures in the Capitol Square, and I know I'm in the north. Telling myself tomorrow is not the sure date you should return, because it can be stressful. And maybe it's about showing up or off, eyes and hearts embroidering the air, bristling in Velcro and solar panels. All actions are coded communications, even your gift. When I took care of the kids, the event was another entertainment with a tape delay pre-programmed, keeps us watching to wonder. I was a tall man in the dawn, red horn blower rattling, machine clicks, ominous whooshing.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Thom. That was fabulous. Yeah, I was writing down my eyes are blue. That was wonderful. Someday, so in the chat section, and Joan, I forgot to remind you, I hope you've looked through the chat section. There was quite a few things that you need to read. And Thom, somebody was saying, you know, some days trees, you know, seem greener. That really resonated as well. My next person that I have down for the list is Richard. And I did want to say, Jeff put into the chat section the wordplay, which is fabulous. It's always a great session, but Hilda was on that one. So if you wanted to look something up, go find that. And then also, Thom, I did want to say Richard put in there so well read. All right, headed your way, Richard.
Thank you, Malaika, for hosting the program, and thank you, Hilda, for such a fine reading. It was a pleasure to hear you read. I'd like to read a new poem. It's entitled Hundreds of Candles. And it's about the notion that sometimes when you lose a loved one, they leave behind, you inherit all kinds of stuff, okay? And I inherited a lot of stuff from my wife that I don't want. You know, so I've been really struggling for the last 2 years to give it away or throw it away or get rid of stuff. So I thought I'd write about that. Hundreds of candles, many colors, sizes from tea to stovepipe, aromas from pine to bayberry, photo albums filled with strangers and children unrelated to me, several framed pictures of Julie leaning into Nicholas Sparks, her favorite author, who came often to sign his newest novel at the neighborhood Barnes and Noble in the years before her leukemia. Countless trinkets that passed as art dangling from hooks perched on shelves, closets full of clothes waiting for a second chance. More shoes than a sonnet has feet. You will understand why I have been slowly giving away a fortune in clutter and always feel a twinge like the snap of a rubber band against the wrist with each separation, but nothing that stung quite so much as unpacking her handbag the day after she died, removing cold coins, keys, crumpled bills, and plastic cards that passed through her fingers before touching mine.
Richard, thank you so very much. That was amazing. Hard stuff, but I gotta say, 3 people at the same time, no, 4 people, this is almost unheard of, wrote more shoes than the sonnet has feet. Yeah, and a great image to end on. And then Joan said, beautiful, Richard, beautiful. Thank y'all.
Thank
I
you.
have Christy next.
Okay.
There we are. Let me come to you. Sorry. I was like looking. There we go. Oh, I've got you all together. Sorry, Richard.
Okay, so I'm going to read something new tonight, even though the chapbook, I should probably be reading from that since it's coming out soon, but I'm going to do this new one. It's called Pain is a Careful Ghost. Knives sit pointed, waiting for him to round kitchen corners, wondering if walking into them will cut away regrets gone rancid. Her vintage ashtray on the bedroom window's outside edge smolders while he dreams sleep. The restless bed pressed against the window's inside lip trembles close enough to kiss embers, wondering if burning down a life will revive his will to breathe. Thank you.
Good heavens, Christy. That's awesome. Thank you so very much. I'm glad you read something new.
Thank you.
Even though I like hearing from the book, that was fabulous. Oh, awesome. Close enough to kiss embers is Jeff just wrote down in the chat section.
Thank you, Jeff.
Kim, I'm headed your way. There we go. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim. It's my first time here. I'm just enjoying it so much. Hilda, your reading was wonderful. I heard about this group from Angela Driven, and I thank her for it. I will thank her for it when I talk to her. And I'd like to invite you all to come and visit another poetry group. It's called Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, which I volunteer for, and I believe my fearless leader, Sandy Anone, has joined us a little late, and we'll share some links to our group and invite you all to come out and visit us on a Sunday for some great readings and community. It's a wonderful group. This poem is about Ella Fitzgerald, who my mother taught me to love. It's called Ella, Two Ways. 1. Mama takes me to hear her sing when I'm 18, Ella's 66, and my mother's a teenager again. Ella glides on stage in a long orange spangled gown, round glasses flashing, and she pours out the gold. Forget arthritis, forget worn out, forget things to do, forget supper to cook, forget this battle or that, forget it. If one of Ella's records starts to play, Mama's spine sits up and take notice, her knees bounce, and her feet start to hop. Ella's singing, Ella's swinging, Ella's making the living easy. Now the brightest spangles are the ones flying out of Ella's throat, charging the air all the way to the nosebleeds, blowing down the theater walls behind us, from the first stretched and twisted tones to the last, showering everything with syncopated stardust. 2. When Ella sings, she dances a stairway of 24 notes, brings a basket full of strawberries, warm bread, and sweet cream butter, summer heat shimmering, clouds scudding, chasing blue skies after a storm. When Ella sings, she spreads her song like a quilt of velvet cords wrapped around lonely, a dream work of sighs, a belly full of ache, an earthquake in the heart. She mesmerizes devils, calls forth angels. When Ella sings, her voice becomes a dream of flying, darting here and there, hovering, weaving like a web, like a dragonfly wing, catching each facet of the light, glistening fractals, tangles, bangles, and beads. When Ella sings, she pours the clean, clear, cold water over the stones of living, over and down, sliding, slipping into a pool below, splashing as it falls. She wipes her brow, dries our sorry tears. When Ella sings, she lingers long at that deep blue pool. Mist rises, light refracts, then her song swims out, past the breakers, then further still to a calm sea, bobs and floats there, slowly turns, begins to stroke back, gathers strength, swells, rises on the crest of her wave. She herself is shaping a curving rhythm she is riding, and she carries us with her over and over, pulling the ropes tied at the very core until finally the crescendo before she lays us down ever so gently back on the shore. Thanks you all so much for
Oh,
letting me
that was
participate tonight.
gorgeous. Yeah, I hope you check the chat section, Kim. There are so many comments
you.
there. I would be hard pressed to read them all, but I do want to say Richard wrote to write about music with such vivid images. Just wow. It's a gorgeous tribute to Ella. That was fabulous. Oh,
Thank you
and
all.
definitely put in the
thanks for-
links. You and Sandra put in the links for joining Cultivating Voices.
We will. We hope to see you all there, and thank you so much.
Oh, it's awesome. Pauletta, let me see. Do I find you? She might have already had to leave because I know we
No,
run over,
I'm
guys.
here.
Oh,
I'm
good. There
here,
you are.
yeah.
I was. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's a little hard for me to find somebody. There we go.
I
I've got you now.
understand. All right. Well, thank you. And Hilda, you have done the Southern Appalachian Writers Cooperative proud as always. I can't wait to get your book and hope to have you sign it for me in person. I was trying to think of what poem to read, and I feel like this one connects with Hilda's work and maybe also with the project that she's working on now. It's called Letter to Myself 15. I want to tell you how in time everything shows on the skin. Today, turning my wrist to bite an apple, I saw a new ridge at the base of my palm, a gentle rise of loosened flesh, not like the sharp slashed mountains where you, in my mind, your only home, remain. Think instead of farmland, river basin, sloped pastures, plowed fields. Oh, you smooth girl, broken only by the sharp protrusion of bone you were so proud of. Ankle, knee, hip, steep pitch of pelvic cage above the valley, the ridge of ribs. You hungered away the softness. Your power lay not in the just ripe plum of breast, but in the knob between them. What have I done with you? What did you do to me? There is a scar, a distant lightning bolt on my right wrist, slashed all those years ago by the impatience of the left thumb's jagged nail. Every time I see its raised white welt, I think of the one who hurt me open then. His love, we'll call it that, a scalpel to the other scars you once lifted your body to receive, now invisible beneath the bone. Did you believe if you could hide what did not heal, the hurt would cease to matter? But we are made of matter, girl. And now this body you have left me to begins to show your leaving. Think deer track through the fallow winter field where every step in thawing ground is visible. And I am trying to love this land, mine now to tend. Thank you.
Gorgeous. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that you hungered away the softness, and Kim wrote a distant lightning bolt. Wow, we are having some fabulous readers. Thank y'all so very much. I love this. Elizabeth, I have you as our final reader for open mic. I'm headed your way. I found you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. Thank you so much, Hilda. I'm so glad I got to hear you tonight. Can you tell me which one I should read, Coroners or Scales?
Oh,
The choice is corners or scales.
Yeah.
So we get to decide between death or cleaning a fish. I'll choose cleaning a fish anytime.
Okay. Scales. My finger scales the page sideways. Even now, my eyes can't decide where to settle. I followed the fish, those inky interruptions swimming in the sea of negative space. I fell behind the school, somewhere between sigma and theta waves. You scooped me up, held me in the bowl you made with your hands. That's all.
Thank you so very much, Elizabeth. Wow. Yeah, no, I'm glad you chose fish. This works. And somebody else says, so inky interruptions. Yeah, that was lovely. That was lovely. Well, thank you all so very much for joining us and celebrating Hilda Downer's most recent book. It's been a fabulous evening, and I appreciate y'all being here on a Thursday. You made my week. Hilda, thank you again.
Thank you. I just want to say that the poems were like being in church, like they just spoke to me. And if I were called to go down front, I would go down the aisle. I appreciate the reading so much. Thank you. Thank you.
I love that. And good to see you, Betty. I just realized you were here. All right, everybody, be well. Hope to see you again on a Thursday.
Thanks.
Hilda, I'll send all this to you soon.